Welcome back to another episode of Cappuccino Chat. This time we're going to talk about two-factor or multi-factor authentication. So, grab a cup of coffee, let's chat. This time we're going to talk about multi-factor or two-factor authentication, what it is, why you should use it, when you should use it, and how to identify those risks associated with the appropriate time to use it. I know that all sounds confusing, but it's not. So the two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication, what that is multiple layers of authentication. So most times we're used to seeing this a lot with our banks when you're doing any kind of online banking. If you are not seeing this when you're doing your online banking, look for a different bank or contact your bank immediately to enable that feature for yourself. So what it is you type in your username and your password. At that point, it's going to come back and challenge you with another form of authentication. Now, normally for most of us, that's cell phone, text, or an application. That text is going to give you a PIN number, or the app will give you some kind of PIN number to authenticate with. There's also, in the medical field, biometrics. In the movies, you see retinal scanners. In the government, they'll actually use those. Those types of layers are also layers of multi-factor authentication. So again, we're challenging you with something that you have to know two different passwords basically to get let in. Now, when should you use multi-factor authentication with your business? There's two times when I recommend using it. So, if you allow remote access into your network by employees or yourself or vendors, you definitely want to turn on multi-factor authentication. That could just be with your VPN or multi-factor on top of your VPN. Again, we need to identify those risks. But if you are allowing outside access into your network, you definitely want to consider the risks of not turning on actually, multi-factor authentication. When else should it definitely be on? Anything that you're using in the cloud. So if you are doing online banking, right? Any kind of your cloud applications, whether it be POS, maybe QuickBooks Online, any of your other core applications that may be hosted with a cloud provider or be provided via a web browser, you want to enable two-factor authentication. If that application doesn't offer two-factor authentication, you should really consider finding someone else that takes security seriously. In today's world, your standard password that everyone doesn't do a good job of password hygiene in changing their passwords, managing their passwords, ensuring that they change their passwords, two-factor authentication is a must. Now, two-factor is not the end-all be-all. It is not going to stop everything, right? So, for instance, your Office 365 or Google apps, for any of you that use Google as well, turning on two-factor authentication is great. So if someone goes to get into your email, they're going to need that extra code. But let's say you're on your computer, either at home, wherever, accessing Outlook, and it prompts you for two-factor. Great, you go on about your business, you're doing your daily life, and an email comes in and you get redirected to a website that is malicious, has some kind of code on it. At that point, they've already bypassed the two-factor because you've entered the code. So again, just by entering two-factor authentication and enabling that does not mean you need to ignore all other layers of security. If you're not sure what other layers of security you should be considering, see my other video where I talked about why you should have layered security inside your business. Now, one thing that we need to do to help you determine where this is at is do some kind of risk analysis. So again, are you opening up yourself to outside vendors or employees? If the answer is no, again, that you have a very low risk of why maybe we should be using two-factor authentication. But let's say your clients come into your office. So you're constantly having strangers basically in and out of your office. And when they come into your office, they could get access to maybe a computer or a terminal of some kind. Think of a doctor's office. When you walk into a doctor's office, you go into the room, The nurse will come in, pull up your chart, take your blood pressure, check your temperature, all those good things, and then they leave the room. Well, if they leave the screen unlocked, anyone could then access that terminal at that point, right? So that is bad. We would definitely want to enable two-factor authentication, so we don't want them guessing a weak password or just typing on the keyboard and opening the application to view or change data at that point. That would be bad. But let's say you don't have users, your clients come into the office. Again, then your risk goes way down. Now, if you then use cloud applications, which most of us nowadays are using some kind of email application, and we're not hosting email as much internally. So we're going to be using Office 365 or Google Apps or some other kind of email provider. Again, you're going to want to turn that on. That's pretty easy to do. Most services allow for some type of two-factor built into it. Office 365 does, and I know Google does as well. Some of your other third-party email applications probably have a way for you to turn it on. You may just need to go in there and enable it, and you should. Maybe you don't do any cloud applications either. Again, your risk comes low, so there would be possibly no need to enable two-factor authentication. In the medical industry, there is a good reason to enable two-factor, and at that point, even just turning on and logging into your computer, we would possibly want to consider enabling two-factor authentication, even for that very first layer. Again, if computers and terminals get left unattended, where an end user can walk up to it, hit the keyboard, move the mouse, and possibly get access to the system, we would want to have that extra layer of locking the screen and even two-factor authentication. So if you have any questions about why, when, where you should enable two-factor authentication, definitely reach out. Give us a call, 760-770-5200. See you next time.